Good morning, Joel Fruendt from SenesTech. How are you doing this morning?
Great, Ben. How are you? Long time no hear.
I'm excited. As you can see, there's so much going on. This market is insane with all the geopolitical headlines, and your stock is insane. This is just beautiful. So excited to be talking to you today. It looks like there's been some significant catalysts at your company here. We have to start with this Baltimore PR that came out on Friday, because that's what a lot of people have been waiting for. And like I've been very explicit about it, and I think everyone, it's just obvious to everyone also who's been listening to and been tuning into all these interviews, that if we do get any municipality to progress from a pilot to full scale implementation, to me, I call that an inflection point for the company. All right. And an inflection point, not only from like a sentiment point of view that basically your product's validated, but also from a quantitative point of view that, this accelerates your path to profitability. So let's start there. Are we wrong to consider this an inflection point moment for your company?
No, not at all. In fact, you're spot on. Being a regulated product by the EPA, we have to go through certain testing and getting the product approved. So you have to get the state approvals, and then once you get the state approvals, when you take like the municipal market, they all want to use it. So it's not uncommon for them to want to do a pilot project. So that's what Baltimore did, and they used the product Evolve. They had originally tried our original product, Contrapest, and then wanted a solid bait. So that's one of the great things about Evolve, being a solid bait, easier to handle, better shelf life, all those things. So they put that into play and watched it for about 8 months. And then they liked what they were seeing. And so they did an RFP for some pest control companies to bid on the actual implementation and the application of it out in the field. And so that's what recently happened. And so we've got the order in and shipping, and trying to lay out, okay, what does that look like for expansion in Baltimore going forward? So we're really excited about that.
So what does it look like?
Well, Baltimore is certainly a substantial American city, and one of the things that they wanted to do was not to be on the Orkin rattiest cities list. So they're trying to get off that list, and they've been doing what most municipalities have done for 50 years, and that's try to poison, to drown, to gas, and they deal with the death rate. And of course, what we do is we deal with the birth rate. And I always like to say this, and you're probably getting sick of me saying it, but 2 rats can become 15,000 in 1 year. That's why we have a place here in an integrated pest management program, because you just can't keep up with them. So what Baltimore has done is said, okay, we're going to start out in this section of the city, and we'll see where it expands. But certainly if they have good success, there's a lot of incentive there to keep it going across the city.
Okay. And what does a full scale, because the PR said expected to expand to full scale implementation, quantitatively, what's that mean for your company if it goes to full scale implementation?
Well, ultimately, it's if you start using it, it's very similar to New York. I think the last time we talked about, New York has 120,000 blocks in the city, and if you can get in a yearly usage pattern that each block uses $500 of product per block, that's a substantial amount. So Baltimore's not quite as large, but if you could get a large full city implementation, very substantial numbers.
Sorry, New York has 120,000 blocks, you're saying?
Yeah, according to ChatGPT, New York has 120,000 city blocks. And, wow. In New York right now, we'll want to talk about that as well, but they're doing, 30 of those blocks.
I mean, the numbers, they're like absurdly high when you throw out like 500 per block, 120,000 blocks, and compare it to a market cap of 7 million. I didn't want to say what the numbers are, but the numbers are so big that you got to imagine, if full scale implementation probably doesn't mean each and every single block, right? It probably means in the rat infested areas, right?
Yeah, and exactly. And of course, with our product, what we control fertility, right? So it's birth control. And so as the product starts working, and it'll start working within a month of consumption, and once that happens, then over the course of the next couple of months, you'll see your populations go down. Then after 6 months, the populations will go down substantially. So the objective here is get the product out there, get it consumed by the rats, and then ultimately your populations will go down. You keep product out there, so then you're controlling your population.
So can we? I'd like to, because now that we have this sentiment inflection with the product validation, the next focus for investors on your company is going to be trying to pin down what a fair value for your company looks like. So if you don't mind, I'd like to quantify this a little bit more. When we talk about citywide implementations, like what percent of a city's blocks do you think would need this solution? Like what percent of, New York City or whatever, out of those 120,000 blocks are rat infested enough that, what would a full scale implementation look like? Like 10% of their blocks, 30% of their blocks, 5% of their blocks? Is there like an average number we can talk about across municipalities across the country so we can start doing math on this?
Well, initially, you would be talking about a substantial portion of the blocks, because as a radius city, there's not a problem in a certain area of the city. There's a problem across the citywide. But then what you'll see is that once you start doing the implementation, you do target the hot zones where you have the highest populations. Mm-hmm. And so we look at it as like, okay, if we can get 25% of those city blocks that are using the product, that's a substantial implementation of the product.
You're talking north of $10 million in the first year in New York City if they get a full scale.
Well, if you get full scale. So that's why we're going along. We're working very closely with them. We just had our first progress report in New York City, and very good news, 100% consumption of the product. Mm-hmm. And so we're moving forward and seeing how that consumption is. And not only this, of course, they're doing it in West Harlem, and very impressed with the performance of the product so far. And that's really what they're measuring, is the consumption of the product.
Wow. That's fascinating. In New York City, are they also interested in getting rid of the rats in the subway, or is that like not even possible?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. What will happen here is that, you do the pilot project, you see what's happening in these certain areas. And then, as it said in their press release, is then we're going to target expansion into other areas. And certainly when you turn on the news and you hear and social media about the subway rats and the pizza rat, and there has to be a plan for that going forward, just because of the publicity that it gets because of the rat populations in the subway.
Oh, I've seen them. They're scary, and they're big in the subway. Yeah. So I know I want to talk about. There's a lot I want to talk about. Can I just jump? I got to jump to a question right here.
Sure.
With how things are going, are you yet in a position, or when do you think you'll be in a position to say, you know what, like we think we can get to profitability by X date? I think previously, I think you guys were targeting Q1 2026, if I'm not mistaken. You said you feel you can get to that break-even level by Q1 2026. First of all, am I representing that correct in terms of your
Well, what our guidance said was that we believe we can get to profitability in 2026. Is it the first quarter? Is it the third quarter?
In 2026.
We're not pinpointing it that much at this point.
Okay.
However, the way
by recent developments.
By recent developments, we think that we got to get to $6.5 to $7 million of revenue to get to cash flow break even, and we believe we can do that in 2026. We'll be watching how these trends are going on the municipal side, as well as our other sectors of our business that are starting to expand as well, and we'll have some more guidance on that.
But $6.5 to $7 million run rate is not very much compared to what could happen in Baltimore or New York City. And now we have this recent order from Bradley Caldwell, which we'll talk about in a second. So, I mean, am I wrong to kind of be excited about thinking about when you put all these pieces of the puzzle together? It seems to me you should be able to reach that run rate in revenue before 2026. Am I wrong about that?
Well, certainly we have, as you call them, inflection points across a lot of our different channels in our vertical markets. And of course, the municipal market, as we see that starting to catch on in the large cities, once you start seeing acceleration on the usage of the product, that's certainly an inflection point where revenues could accelerate rapidly. And we see the same thing across some of our other markets and some of our channels that we're looking at, whether it be the retail space or in pest management, or then you start looking at this being a global problem, and we've really started to accelerate putting distributors into place on a global basis, and those would be substantial orders because they would be ordering container loads of the product at a time.
Right, but so am I wrong in saying that, hey, you're saying 2026, but I'm looking at all the stuff that's happening right now. Isn't there a decent chance it could be by 2025, end of 2025?
There's certainly a great possibility that one of these channels and some of our vertical markets, that there could be the inflection points where the usage of the product would take off and could accelerate the revenues to that level much earlier than anticipated.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so sorry to put you in a corner there, but yes, that's
right.
Logically what makes sense. I want to make sure I'm not missing something. Like when you look at these press releases and what you're saying, that's what makes sense. Okay, so any other updates in terms of municipalities? We got a nice New York City update from you. We got the Baltimore update. What other cities are you doing pilot programs in, and any progress updates you want to give us on those?
Well, Chicago, we talked about that, and this is an interesting thing in how these things developed. And in New York City, it really developed kind of from the top down, right? You had we were there saying, hey, you need to use birth control as part of your programs for pest management, for rodent management, and it came from the city councilman sponsoring a bill saying we should do this contraceptive pilot. In Chicago, it really, we kind of got rejected at the top level saying, well, we're fine doing what we're doing right now, even though they were voted the rattiest city. You'd think that they would want to do something else. But it really came from then the communities and the neighborhoods and the people who said, I was at this Chamber of Commerce meeting, right? And the two questions asked, does anyone like rats? And actually out of the 28 people in the room, one lady raised her hand, she liked rats. And does anybody like poisons? And nobody raised their hands there. So that's when the discussion happened. And we started talking about you need to control the population. So use birth control. Then you can still use your other components of your pest management program. So right away, we started getting orders from the what they call special service areas. There's 55 of those in Chicago. They all have some sort of funding mechanism, and they started buying pallets of material. And not only were they deploying it, but they were then trying to get their residents to use it so they could come to the Chamber of Commerce storefront and actually pick up the product and start using it. Being a minimum risk product, it's safe for you, safe for people, animals, and the environment. So that came from the grassroots up, which we're really excited about, because this isn't somebody saying, oh, you have to do this. This is saying we want this product because we want to get poisons out of our neighborhoods and we want to get rid of the rats. And our product Evolve does both. And easy to use. The residents out there using it, as well as being deployed. So what we're doing is we're in discussions with many of those other 55 special service areas to get them on the program. And in fact, we now have a number of them that have put it in their budget for the next fiscal year. So we're really excited about that, because that's an opportunity that doesn't come around often to get at the grassroots level.
Very nice. That sounds great. By the way, for the rest of our Discord members watching, just a little price alert. ASTS, it is at a new high of the day. But okay, so that's Chicago. Any other cities just haven't seen good progress?
Well, we had some really good news around the Boston area. We have a couple of the communities there that are now actually putting the product out for an RFQ, a request for quote, and we've started shipping some of those areas, places like Somerville that have piloted the product last year. So once again, the legwork that we're doing last year is starting to pay off this year as we help them with the pilot programs. They have success, they start putting it into their programs. So the Boston area is a real hotbed for us in the number of the communities around the city. And then, of course, I mentioned last time San Francisco, so we're getting deeper into that with our partner there, PestTech.
That's a lot of stuff, man. So you know what? I have to ask these questions too. I know we got some other things to talk about, but as I talk to people about your stock and I get feedback from other investors, the questions have shifted. The early questions, in the last couple of quarters were about money and the typical concerns people have about microcaps. Oh, it's a microcap. They're going to dilute. They're probably so far from profitability. Now people aren't asking about that anymore. Now what people are asking about are, number one, can you scale to meet all the demand? And then also number two, I've been hearing more of this. Well, if this is such a good opportunity, you guys are making so much money, what's your IP protection or the competitive situation look like? So if you can address those two new concerns now that people are looking at the next level of your stock.
Yeah, absolutely. And was just at our plant in Phoenix. We just moved to a larger facility. We went from roughly 8,000 square feet to almost 30,000 square feet. We've got our line up and running. We've scaled it. Our manufacturing team has done some incredible work on getting the latest and greatest equipment to really scale this up. And so they have that set up. It's running. We're running more per day than we ever have. We've got a lot of room for expansion there. So we've got the additional equipment if needed that we have identified and the sources for that. So that's all going well. The way that we're scaled up right now is we can, with the equipment we have running just one shift a day, we can get to that $10 million revenue mark with the existing equipment. Of course, then we can put on additional shifts. We can purchase additional equipment. So that's all part of our capital plan that we have going forward.
Okay, and what about IP protection and competition?
Yeah, well, we have patent pendings for use patterns, right? So it's on the product and then for how it's used. And so, we believe that that's all good, but being the first to the marketplace, the speed to market, the brand, and getting out there and doing all these things is going to give us a significant advantage over anybody else who might try to get into this.
Are there any other competitors trying to compete with you in these cities right now?
No, not anybody that has a registered product, right? So that's the other thing, is this product has to be registered with the EPA, which is not a short process. Then you have to get approvals from the states. So, we've got all that behind us and gives us a significant advantage of anyone else who might try to jump in the marketplace.
Wow. All right. Sorry, I got to jump to another question. That just leads to what's the end game look like for your company here? Is it because this is imagine if you do go, there's no competition for now, you go full scale implementation, let's say in New York City, Boston, Baltimore, San Francisco, Chicago. I mean, you're talking about, I think, am I wrong? Tens of millions of dollars a year in revenue. I mean, is that something you guys feel like you want to manage and you want to grow into that? Ultimately, what's this look like? Are we getting bought out? Are you paying dividends? How's this work out?
Well, certainly our end game here. Well, it's not even end game. Our game is, first thing is we got to get to profitability. We're really focused on that. We got to scale up. We got to get to profitability. Once we get to profitability, we believe that we can really accelerate that. and that we can accelerate revenues, we can accelerate profitability. And we want to get this product and the company and the brand name to be one of the leading products that's used in the pest control industry for rodent control. And being able to do that will get us on scale and online as a top performer. And from there, we've got our eyes on our product development team on some other things that we can do. We get asked all the time about other animals, right, for population control. One of the recent shows I was at, Pest World, and we got asked, can you do this for wallabies? Can you do this for kangaroos? Can you do this for possums? So we have, we're not limited to just rats and mice, and that's an exciting thing about it as well.
Awesome. All right, sounds good. Let's talk about international opportunities, or any updates on that front.
Yeah, we are getting continue to get great interest on the international front. We just got some more good news on Australia, New Zealand, is that we think they're expecting the official approval in September now. We have a distributor that's set up. We've been talking to them about bringing containers of material in. We expect to have some news on that in the pretty near future. And of course, with New Zealand, they have their Project 2050, where they want to try to eradicate rats and mice by 2050. So perfect product to do this. As we've talked about it before, 100 rats are easier to control than 1,000. 1,000 are easier to control than 10,000. So our product has a place there. And really where it has a place too is that they're also concerned about the humane aspects of this, right? That there's no secondary impacts on birds and other animals that eat a rat that has poison in them. And with our product, all food additive ingredients, that's not the case. So we just signed up a new distributor in the UAE, which we're going to have some news that'll be coming on. We've got some good discussions going on a lot of the countries in South America, most recently in Ecuador. So one of the reasons South America is interested in it, it's a great product for agriculture, right? You can put this out where you don't want to use poisons such as the sugarcane fields, row crops, grain management, and looking at it from the fact that, okay, you're not having to deal with any of the effects of having poisons on board, and it'll do the job that you need it to do, and that's to really reduce the population. So you have less consumption and less contamination, thus less damage, thus not as much of an economic impact from rodents.
Can someone get options trading on this stock, please? I need some options. That's what I need. All right. So that's that. Let's talk about this news from last Wednesday. SenesTech announces Bradley Caldwell Inc. as new U.S. distributor for Evolve rodent fertility control products. Tucked away at the bottom of that press release was one line: BCI's initial order represents the largest distributor stocking order the company has received. Wow, that sounds like big news. Can you quantify that for us, or tell us anything else about this?
Yeah, I'll tell you just the little story about how it happened. Is so, Evolve is such a great product for farm and ranch stores, retailers, pet supply stores, and it's like, okay, how do you get there? How do you find them? So we, as most companies do, is we take our products and display them at trade shows. And at the National Hardware Show, there's this guy that came frantically walking very fast across the way, and he said, I just saw your product in the new innovation. They had an innovation area, and they allowed us to set up a little spray there. And it was from Bradley Caldwell, and said, this is the product we've been looking for. He said, there's not been any innovative news in the pest control industry, especially rodent control, in years. And we've been looking for something just like this. And we started to have discussion. They laid out, here's who we distribute to, mainly in the Northeast United States. But they have over 8,000 farm, ranch, hardware, pet supply dealers that they distribute products on a regular basis. So we had their discussions. They put in their initial stocking order. Now we're going to do training for all of their salespeople. as well as do some promotional work to get the product in the stores with some of our point of purchase displays and those things. So, the big thing is that we've seen, and it goes back to the grassroots thing, if we can get it out to the people that need it and want to use it, they continue to use it. We have seen that. And this is a great channel for us to get that out to not only the rural communities, but the communities in general that are around cities and in suburbs, so that we can get people that have the need to control rodent populations, the product in front of them. And so we're real excited about our partnership with Bradley Caldwell.
Very nice. Sounds like you guys are firing on all cylinders right now. Are you hiring people? Do you have the need to get more people on board, or are you handling everything okay with your staff?
No, we are. We're putting more salespeople on board. We just put another one on board this week, and we're really focused on, okay, where do we need to get the penetration and to get the people that are out there that can do the trainings and the pilot projects, because that's what we like to do. We like to be pretty hands-on and get out in the field and show them how it works, and do the results. Another great thing that happened is UC Irvine, California Irvine, just completed their 9-month study where they put Evolve out into 144 different bait stations, and they got 100% consumption up to about the 5th month, and then consumption started to go down. Well, that correlates with the fact that, okay, they didn't see any more juveniles on their cameras. So it shows that they start consuming the product, it gets to a point that then the population starts coming down. So you'll see less consumption. Of course, on cameras, you'll see less juveniles run around. And then ultimately, when you get into the 9th and 10th month, you'll see large reductions where we've shown that it's over 90% effective when used as part of an IPM program.
Amazing stuff. I have to ask, last thing before we close. By the way, I see a lot of comments and interest, like, can it be used in Canada? Is Canada interested? Can it be used for insects and mosquitoes? So people are getting excited. But I got to ask about New York one more. I want to dig into New York a little bit more. Based on what you're seeing so far, that positive early update, and based on your relationship with New York City and what you know about their bureaucracy and the red tape, et cetera, if this were to expand to, if we were to get a similar announcement that we saw with Baltimore, right? What would the timeline of that look like? Would it be a 2025 thing, or would it be a 2026 thing?
I think there's an opportunity for it to happen in 2025. They've already said that we're gonna monitor this, and if we start to see good results, it may expand into there. So they left that open, that they could do that as quickly as they wanted to. And
I mean, does it need to be passed like in a budget? Like, what kind of red tape exists in New York City there? Is the funding already ready for that? Or is there like some red tape and bureaucracy that has to go through to do a bigger program?
Well, it's funny you mentioned mosquitoes, because my background, I came from 15 years with the largest mosquito control products producer. And what we always found was that if there's an issue that we can solve and it relates to public health, they find the funding for it. And I think that's what you'll see in New York, is that they have a certain amount, I think it's $600,000 that's laid out for this project to get it off the ground. And then they're going to expand it as needed. So I think they've identified where the funding source is. And the public health component of this is great. Rodents carry all kinds of different viruses, right? And so they're public health risk. And this is a public health issue as well. And so that's where, we feel strongly about that. We're helping support public health programs that relate to diseases that are vectored by rodents. And where there's issues with public health, usually you'll see that the funding follows.
Amazing update, Joel. Appreciate your time as we always do. I cannot wait to continue on this journey with you. Looking forward to great things. Thank you, Joel.
Thanks, Ben. Always a pleasure.
Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.